Thank you, Anna, for this, and thank you, Bushel Collective, and everyone who's here, and most especially my friend Sasha Banks, who has a book coming out next year, and that's why this workshop is happening. And I was very lucky to be able to help Sasha make this workshop happen and come out all the way out here to see you and everyone else. So, thank you. Okay. I'm going to be reading from an ongoing manuscript that is a combination of sci-fi, short stories, and poetry. That features 3 different sections that have like mythic characters. The first one is a shapeshifter and a little girl. The second is a time traveler and a historian. And the third is a lawn jockey and the sea. So I'm going to read from a couple of those. Okay. Always with... Okay. Sorry, everybody. It wouldn't be a reading if there wasn't some technical difficulty. Okay, is it correct? Great. The Shapeshifter and the Little Girl. Black boy, born in Louisiana, 1946. First shifted in the colored-only swimming pool as a child when a white man with white hands tossed a grenade into the shallow end. Children screamed and the black boy shifted, ducked beneath water's surface, became scaled skin and catfish snarl. The shapeshifter lived, had scars, was never comfortable in water again. The shapeshifter shows a little girl his always jungle, 1968. Shows her how he crouched, grew fur and padded feet, felt the hard lob of a hand grenade hit the ground. Shows her how he picked it up with his teeth, threw it back through the leaves, and ran on 4 legs as blood slicked the canopy. Shapeshifter says in 1968 he went to Vietnam a small boy, but came back a man. Body so different the government thought him criminal, thought he'd killed the boy, claimed his dog tags and his kin, and left them in the jungle. After this story, the little girl falls asleep. She tosses and turns and dreams all night about dead boys in the woods, strange men emerging. 1996 bedtime story. Shapeshifter says, listen, little girl, when the grenade is in your hand, pull the pin and count 1, 2, 3, then throw. That way they can't pick it up and throw it back at you. The little girl nods her head, takes note, wonders if he learned this in the water or the jungle. The next few pieces are from the time traveler section, so they're a bit of a shift in tone. They have photos. Time traveler's log, transit, location unknown. The time traveler arrived the way a bruise settles, at the base of the skull, deep throb of cortex, spinal curve and thrash. The traveler lay on the red clay earth for suns and suns. Buzzards shadowed and seasons changed before the traveler could attend, sit up, and make place of their body. Can you see that? Okay, that's as good as it will get. Time Traveler's Log, Precedent Park, Croker, Virginia, 2017 AD. And they're out to pasture, right? Or so the saying went. 43 of them in the field. The traveler and myself walks around each, stares at the molting concrete and wires, wonders at the meaning of it, how one bust remained intact, except the top of the head, which lays to the left, under a crowd of brambles, how metal clings to the nose of another. And what was a precedent anyway? A man or a concept or a religion? The traveler can't remember the tales, wonders at the back of each head, so very intact, except the 2. The traveler knows they often died this way in the Anthropocene, a hot metal thread through the brain. The traveler stares at the hunch of relics, sits for a day or so, writes charnel with a forefinger in the dirt, shakes their head at the field notes. 2017 AD, a technicality of course. How silly it seems to link time to one man. It rains and rust runs down the precedents. The traveler takes note and watches the earth eat back the ore. Time Traveler's Log, New York Academy of Music, New York, New York, 1888 AD. The top of this says, a death blow to spiritualism. I'm sorry, it's cut off right now. See if you can see it better. Like this. Yeah. On stage, Maggie Fox takes off her shoes, lifts her ankle to a low stool, unravels a lie or series of lies, her foot cracking, splitting perhaps. I have gone to the dead that I may get from them some little token. Nothing ever came of it. Nothing. Nothing. And the traveler, myself, splits as well. What if Maggie Fox and I are two scenes of the same play? And what if that's all time travel is? A one-sided conversation with the dead, myself a charlatan, answering with taps on the stage door, not answering at all. The only truth, synovial fluid and bone. And I will read one little piece from the last section, which is the lawn jockey of the sea. I don't have a picture for this, but if anyone can imagine the lawn jockeys that you sometimes see on unfortunate lawns, the visibly painted black man with the red mouth holding his hand out. And so this section imagines him constantly stationary but able to hear things around him. Blue whales have the largest bodies. I learned this from the TV. It sits through walls and walls. Static spits from it like steam off pig iron, and that's what my body is made of, I suppose. Hot metal cooled. But I can't remember. From where I stand, I hear the ocean. It's like it knows me. It's like it's scared to leave me alone with myself. I've tried to ask it how it makes the bodies. Are there blue whales rising from it like steam? Is there static involved? The TV might know, but the channel has changed. Or perhaps the TV has changed. I'm not sure how long I've been standing here. I know the sun has turned, but then it's always turning. When it rains, my ankles bleed red iron. I cannot take the water. Am I nothing like a blue whale? Thank you. And now, thank you. Where's the remote?
Yeah.
Hey y'all.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Sasha, and thank you to Bushel for having me. Thank you, Anna, for being such a great host. Marcus, also thank you for coming and helping to put up the projector. Don't know how much it needs to be. I'm going
Is it all for you?
Huh?
Is it all for you?
I know, you're gonna take it down when I leave, whatever. No, but thank you guys for coming, for being part of today's reading. And I'm gonna read you some pieces from a book that I wrote. It is coming out next year. I'm very excited. It's my first book. It's a poetry collection of like political sci-fi, if you can imagine such a thing. And so I'm gonna read you first a piece that I don't actually normally read very often, but I don't know, I feel like maybe you'll appreciate it. It's called The Founder's Farce. Once upon a time, Christopher Columbus sneezed and the constellations were formed as George Washington stood below them and chopped down a cherry tree to build the ark. The rain came and bled on everything, swallowed Robert E. Lee and spit him out onto the shore, where the Wright brothers spotted him from their hot air balloon just before crashing into the thick of Yellowstone Park. The commotion startled Lewis, who ran to find Clark, who was, at that moment, building a log cabin. And the quake was so great, it shook the land into 50 pieces, and the states took their shapes when suddenly a thread of lightning slid across the sky, striking Benjamin Franklin right between the eyes. And from that day on, all his dreams were premonitions. One night he dreamt of iron stitches holding the West together, and in the morning, the railroad was sewn across the Mississippi River, into which John Rockefeller had just tossed his third penny when the spirit of St. Louis came floating up from below the current, saying, "Fee, fi, fo, fum, of all your wishes I may grant one." Rockefeller cried, "I wish my hands were made of money." And in a blink his palm palms turned to bills and his fingers coins. He buried them into the soil and a plume of oil shot from the ground, ruining Betsy Ross's best dress. She quickly began a new skirt, stitching a pattern so beautiful she hung it in her window for all to admire, including her neighbor, John Wilkes Booth, who waited for nightfall to feed the skirt from her window where Abraham Lincoln, out walking his Cocker Spaniel, stood mere feet away, watching the skirt be carried off. He confronted Booth, saying if it weren't returned by midnight, he would announce to everyone what Booth had done at the following week at the town hall meeting wherein the country would finally be named, but Booth refused. Days later, John Hancock stood before the town and drew the country's name from a hat of suggestions written on slips of paper. In his hand was the inscription, Marigold, but on account of his failing eyesight and the author's scribbled cursive, he misread America. And as the town applauded, Abraham rose to his feet and began, 4 days and 7 hours ago, our neighbor, John Wilkes, when just then, Booth leapt out from behind the shadows and fired a fatal bullet into Abraham's chest. Booth was swiftly apprehended, and at his funeral, Abraham's casket was draped with Betsy's stolen skirt, which the townspeople declared the official American rag. This second one that I'm going to read you is called Upon Visiting Harriet Tubman's Grave. I actually used to live in Rochester, and I was traveling with the woman that I was living with and her family. We were traveling up to, I think like Genesee or something like that, and we went through the town of Auburn, and what we didn't know was that Harriet Tubman's grave is there. And so we were driving, and there's a sign that suddenly appears and says that we're on the Harriet Tubman Freeway, and we're like, excuse me? And then we keep driving, and there's a sign that points to a house. That's Harriet Tubman's house as well, so it's not that far from where
In
she is.
Genesee?
No, it's in Auburn, on the way to Genesee. Well, from where we were coming. So that was a really surreal experience. Around the time that we found this, this was around the time when people were still determining whether or not the state was going to indict Darren Wilson for the death of Michael Brown. So yeah, I wrote a little bit about that. I dressed my hair in white flowers to make myself beautiful for her, because she could be anywhere, watching another of her liquid daughters come to dissolve over her mouth and say her name without saying it at all. She knew everything there is to weep about, will be to weep about, was to weep about, and there she was, a temple 6 feet under my shoes and the long winter. Oh, hold on, you might not get all that poem. Let's see. I don't know where the other half of that poem went. No, technical difficulties. Cliffhanger, you have to buy the book, actually. This piece is called America Collapse 2. So there's several parts to this. I'm going to read you the second half. So part of this poem was really like me sort of having fun with just imagining the destruction of the country that we know now. And so I'm mentioning that because that's part of some of the imagining that we did in this week's workshop, is sort of thinking about destruction and building new things, creating new things, the generative nature of anger and things like that. And when I wrote this piece, that's a space that I was very much in, a place of rage, a place of anger. And so I couldn't destroy things physically in my space. So I did all of my destroying in this particular poem. I saw a city crumbling into the mouth of a many-headed beast. The beast was not the terror, she was my cousin. The terror was the sudden knowing that all empires are made of paper and damned religions. I will tell you the horror, and that is of the crumbling city's silence. Yes, its people had mouths, and yes, they were stuffed with the broke-off limbs of the conquered, refusing their shouting breath. Elbow, elbow, fibula, knee. The innocuous become the silencer, the way the small do become the mighty with new big bodies and opposable tongues. Everything does weep, but oh, how it growls when the wailing is done. If anger on the other side of fear is rage, this city was delivered to death with savage conviction. I saw the beast lick the sinew from her jaws, and the city, it was still and clean, new, and clean, bright and clean and clean and clean as the blood on my face. Sasha fells the wildwood. The poplars know how to hold death, keep it still, but I'm swinging the axe. They're all around the city, eyeless and staring even to the dirt under my nails, peopling the bayous, hungry. Look, last night was that dream again, me and Jesus pulling nails out of our feet at the lip of the Mississippi Delta. Somewhere Coretta is calling for Martin to come down from a sycamore. He's just a boy here, but he weeps, and the sky is ripped at the belly. They shifted shapes, but I know. The rocking chair, the banister, nightstand, porch steps, vanity, I know, and I am swinging the axe. Don't laugh. I couldn't have been the only black child who didn't trust the forest, who saw it from her dark window turning itself into rows of small coffins. A silence like that, all the time smirking with no mouth, knew my terror and loved it. Watch me now. I'm swinging this axe. I come back for all of this summer and give my flesh to it, undressed in its hot breath. Watch, just steady on this axe I'm swinging. I run through this clan of cypresses whirling their lassos above their branches. They want to make me their strangest fruit. But look how the axe humbles the wood to a stacked history of its noosed unions to this skin. A clean cut, and now so much firewood. This poem is called a Portrait of My Sister's Ankle Tied in Ribbon. We inherit the sky somehow, I think. You and I have circled the alchemy of blood and magic, time and ancestors, anchors and flesh, but I have no good answer for how to live on the ground, Ariana. Not as long as my own body is a wounded kite convulsing in the wind of history. Not as long as leaving my body is the only way I know to outlive it. When our people collapsed to small ruins, we watched our own black feet begin to lift off the ground. Black balloon bodies versed in ascension or survival, which might be the same thing. If my love could be the ribbon that my age has woven up to this moment, I would tie it round your ankle as you float above my head. Keep you inside your body, tethered to this earth. Sister, what spectacular weight is blackness like this that belittles all the sciences with its burden and weightlessness? To reconcile a heaven into this earth, these bodies is an ancient dance, done between cloud and soil, despite the gravity. I think I've got maybe two more. Okay, so this is America post collapse. That series has like several iterations, but this is the last one in that particular series. It's actually written after, I don't know if anyone's ever read The Alphabet by Inger Christensen, but this is after that form. Endings exist, ripped curtains, shock, and chrome and clay and captives and coconut oil. Patriots are vanishing or existing less and less. Aftermath. Magnolias exist. Their misty breath exists, and whatever bodies below them are held still and always. Light caught in a mirror is held. A daughter's name held in a mouth. A daughter's hand held at a crosswalk. Crosswalks exist. 808s exist. Subwoofers, streets, sidewalks, and saints. Saints and sidewalks exist. Pavement, parked cars, patrols, vanishing or existing less and less. Water exists, and thirst on the tongue. Thirst exists, and doors and demons and decisions exist too. Danger exists. Hush hush is vanishing. Fences and maps vanishing too. Little men and their little militaries are vanishing or existing less and less. You stand at the bathroom sink, brushing your teeth in the mirror when you notice the reflection of some bygone era walk across the floor of the hallway behind you. You turn around. She shows you her hands, muddy, vines under her nails. You face the mirror and she is gone. Hands exist. Hands, hoodies, hymns, hind legs, and ha-ha. Ha-ha exists. Victory and violins, too. 808s and dancing men, full as a magnolia with the wind in its hair, exist. Its joy, and that exists, too. Aftermath. Living is loud, but not the way dying is loud. On the ground, some found magic. The sound of prayers exists. Round bellies of children exist. Children exist. Aftermath. There is your mother, under a street light calling your name after sunset, and you answer. You answer. Answering exists. Answering exists, which means the living exist. Existing exists. And maybe so much death is vanishing or existing less and less. I have one more. In this new quiet, I admit there was a time when I wanted to befriend it, stroke its face and tell it my name. I didn't think to look at the dirt and continents, blood and languages, the names and people under its nails. Before I knew it wanted to kill me, I wanted it to smile at me. It is dead now, a ghost, meaning everything about it can be seen in the dark, as it often is these days in the ancient suburbs. A man says its mammoth body collapsed itself and came up through the floorboards. I say yes, because I remember. It skulks under another man's bed. He says it had hands the size of an 18-wheeler. I say yes, because I remember. A woman saw it pulling at the ill-fit skin of its face, and I say yes, because I remember. My God, my heavens, my goodness, my Lord, they say. But was it always so loud? I say, no.